There are seasons in life that just mark the loss of friends and loss of community. And losing your community and friends is so hard, especially if it comes with harsh words instead of a gentle passing of seasons. How do you survive this sudden loss? How can you find a new community? This week, we're going to talk about friendship and community. Do you miss having time for Jesus and yourself, but you're drowning in the responsibilities of motherhood? If so, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Cheryl, wife, girl mom, and Jesus follower. I learned the not-so-secret ways to become the mom my girls needed by prioritizing Jesus back into my mom life and reclaiming my identity in Christ. If you're ready to build faith while washing dishes, rediscover your identity, and love yourself like your babies do, grab your earbuds and lock that bathroom door for a minute alone. It's time for Mom. And speaking of community, I am super excited to announce that I got the private Facebook group for Time for Mom up and running. It is a growing community and I am so looking forward to meeting new moms. Please head over to bit.ly/Time for Mom community and join the fun. Let's get started. When I got married, I lost my best friend. I moved away from where I had grown up and I didn't keep up with anybody. I spent a year with almost no community. Sure, I was around people, but I didn't have any what I would call deep relationships. I had friends, but they weren't somebody that I would call just to go through life with. They were people that I loved, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't that deep friendship. Enter an interfering pastor's wife. I had been going to my husband's church off and on when he wasn't at home, but every time when he was at home, he made me go. And she asked me to volunteer at our church. So I prayed about it and I asked my husband and then I agreed. This wasn't quite a year into moving to Montana, but a few short months after that, we had a fire, a big one, and we got evacuated. What would have happened if I hadn't have volunteered? I would have had almost no community because the community that I had established was my husband's boss and his family, and they were being evacuated as well. But because I'd started volunteering, I did have some people that I could call. I had places to go. I had places I could take our animals. I had a community. Community shifts over time. This is supernatural. It shifts when you go from teenager to adult. It shifts when you go from single to married. It shifts when you go from married to having children. And it shifts again when your kids move out and when you retire. It's full of shifts. It's an ebb and flow. But how do you find community when you have sudden life shifts rather than a gradual one? You see, I wasn't the only one displaced from my family. My husband had left everything he knew too. He knew that God had called him to Montana to follow his dream of being a hunting guide. Consequently, that is also how we met, which is a super cool story. Someday I hope to share it. God has a plan, even in our loneliest places, but that doesn't mean the loneliness is gone. When we have these shifts, like my husband did, moving across the country to a new state, he had nobody and he had a flip phone. So it wasn't like he could just FaceTime somebody. And I remember after I got established at our church as a volunteer and had friends, that he was lamenting at how he wished he had friends. He had family, very close relationships with his family, but he didn't have friendships where we lived. And I had a simply amazing best friend and many other friendships that I was fostering, and he was almost depressed by the lack of friends. So how do you find a community and make friends as an adult? I am not a friendship expert, but I will be linking an amazing podcast called The Friendship Tour and the host and friendship coach named Cecilia Curtis. She is amazing. She is super sweet. And if you do have trouble making friends as an adult, I highly recommend her podcast. And while, like I said, I'm not an expert, but I am going to share what I did do as a normal non-expert. And if you do need expertise, like I said, head on over to the Friendship Tour and get that advice there. The first thing, of course, that you can do is to pray. And you really can and should pray for friends, for yourself, for your spouse, for your children. But that doesn't mean that you will suddenly have a best friend pop up out of thin air. I prayed for friends for my husband for 5 years, and it has taken a lot of change in our life, but now he has many deep friendships, but it took time for those to happen. The second thing is be bold. This is a scary one. I remember vividly, I was volunteering in the church office, and a woman named Ellie that had just moved to our area with her husband. I barely knew her, like at all. And she said, "Hey, I feel like we have a connection. Can we hang out and be friends?" She literally asked me to be her friend. And we did, and she became my best friend. And then she introduced me to what I call my Montana best friend when she decided to move and became my Arizona best friend. Being bold doesn't mean being foolish. She waited until she had talked to people and had found some people that she did want to get to know, that she had some common interests with, or at least that, for lack of a better term, that spark. There was interest in each other. You liked each other as friends. And she waited till that and she asked people to be her friend. If you've ever seen We Bought a Zoo, there is a concept in there that I would link to this. It's called 20 Seconds of Insane Courage. And it's how the main character met his wife. He saw her and she was in a coffee shop and he's like, "Okay, just have insane courage for 20 seconds." And he walks in there and he starts talking to his wife. You don't have to live in a state of constant boldness. All you need is 20 seconds. Number 3, choose to trust your discernment. I often choose to believe that people aren't as bad as the world seems to be. And for the most part, this has held true, but it doesn't mean that I trust lightly, especially now that I have kids. I might trust that their intentions are not what they seem in a situation. Like they say something that's hurtful, I'm going to choose to believe that they didn't mean it like that until I've talked with them. I don't trust my closest secrets. I definitely don't trust my kids to people lightly. It's important to be discerning. It's important to pray about it. If someone is making my little people person uncomfortable, they will not be allowed access to my family, period. Because I would trust my child's instincts every time on that. If my spirit is in knots around someone, I am not going to invite them into my inner circle. Because if my spirit is in knots, there's a reason. And I've learned to trust that. I will still love them, but it will be from a distance that keeps my family safe. The fourth thing, remember that people as a whole are lonely and don't know how to make friends either. We are such an awkward group, especially since COVID. I used to hug everyone, and now I'm like, do I even make eye contact? Oh no, I sneeze. They're going to think I'm sick. Making friends, deep friends, live life together friends is so much harder now than it used to be. Now that I'm an adult, maybe it's because of the speed of life, but I think it's more because it's harder to make ourselves get out of our comfort zones, no matter how unhealthy those zones are. Like I mentioned in the opening story, I was in a depression that was getting rapidly deeper because I had no community and no friends, and I had zero interest in that. I didn't recognize that I was in a depression until years later. No one really wants to make the first step, at least not face to face. We are so cool with yelling at each other online and complaining about no community, but we are terrible at actually accepting or creating it. Just ask. I hear people all the time complain about there being no community, and yet when they are presented with an opportunity, they won't follow through. You're not responsible for the follow through of other people, but if you're seeking community, you're responsible for starting it, searching for it, and accepting it. The last thing is to do things together. It is super okay to go to a park with another mom and awkwardly watch your kids play together while you pretend that the other mom doesn't exist. It's a starting point, all right? If your kids get along and have friends, that is amazing. Go for walks, play games, watch a movie. Watch your kids fight and place bets on who the winner might be. Just kidding, don't do that. That's not actually legal for one. Doing activities together as a family or simply as friends will strengthen your relationship quickly. There's been studies on this, on how people going on group activities makes deep friendships. There's a connection that happens during activities that don't happen over a cup of coffee. Growing up, we used to say that we knew the good boyfriends of my cousins when they actually made it through a work day from my extended family. Working next to each other, even if it's doing a garden bed or helping each other clean houses or doing a volunteer work project around the community, doing things like that reveals character and reveals whether or not you and their values are the same. And shared values is very important in friendship. So, just a quick recap. Pray for friends. Be bold. Choose to trust your discernment. Remember that people are lonely and awkward just like you. Do things together to help create those deep friendships. Making friends is hard, especially when it comes after betrayal and heartache. I've been there. But you have to get back on that friendship horse. If you're concerned about your judgment of character because historically you pick just absolute horrible people as friends, ask your spouse what they think. Ask your family what they think. Trust me, your family's not going to be blind to your faults. They will also see things that you don't, that you might not be able to see or be ready to see, and they'll be able to help you pick good friends. You do need community. You need it to build your faith. You need it to keep a shred of sanity as a mother. But you also need community for life. God said it is not good for man to be alone, and he didn't just mean a spouse. You need community. David did not just have David. David had, I forget how many of his mighty men, and they were his closest friends. You need community. I would love to hear your takeaway on this week's episode. If you go on and head on over to Time for Mom Facebook community, it's called Biblical Encouragement for Christian Moms. Join the group and leave a comment on how you have or plan on growing your community and making some new friends. And if you need a little extra biblical encouragement this week, head on over to Mom Life Devotions at bit.ly/Mom Life Devotions and access a year of weekly devotions. You'll get a new one delivered to your email every Monday, along with a quick rundown of this week's episodes of Time for Mom. And you'll also be the first to know of anything new developing. Until next week, mamas, remember, you aren't alone. God's always with you. He gave you your family and your spouse, and it is totally okay to want friends outside of them and to need friends outside of them. You've got this. It's going to be okay. Bye. Hey, beautiful. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds to share this with a mom who's wading through those mounds of laundry and dishes and wishing for just a little me time? Also, please leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. It makes my day to know this podcast has helped you. Well, it's time for me to wash more dishes and cook more food. I'll meet you next Wednesday for another episode. Until then, may the God of grace fill you with his peace.